Watch the entire video, my lovely viewers, to get the whole thing. Without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you lovely viewers.
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me also just start by recognizing our colleagues, the partners of this presser, the Fourth Estate, and also for brevity of time, let me ride on the protocols that have already been established here. I must apologize, I'm running with the flu, but I thought this is very important for me to participate in because the issues that keep piling up, we need to be able to speak to the nation at the earliest available opportunity. I will also start by addressing myself to the issues concerning the Lungu family from quite a different perspective. Firstly, of course, to reassure the Lungu family and also members of the Patriotic Front that we have remained keen in following what is going on around the funeral of the late president and the preparations for the burial that have been disrupted because of the court proceedings that are taking place in South Africa. We are in touch with our colleagues who are instructing the lawyers in South Africa to represent the interests of the widow and the family. We are expectant that the South African courts are going to rise to the occasion and decide the matter in accordance with the justice that case demands. But like Honorable Kafwaya has said, we just want to continue registering our sympathy and empathy with the family members of the Lungus, starting with the widow herself. She's going through the most excruciating moments of time. We know that people have been going there, some of them as emissaries and some of them on their own, to go and speak to that family. I think that what should be at the center of these trips that are taking place going to South Africa is just not going to acquire the deliverable of ensuring that the body of the late president is brought to this country for burial without addressing the underlying problems that this family has had for the last now almost 1 month plus, in trying to resolve the issues, surrounding this issue. We have been with the Lungus for a long time. We can relate to the pain that they're going through. And even when on social media some people are finding it right to spite them, we would like to call on Zambians to be people that are motivated by the philosophy of Ubuntu, to understand what the Lungus are going through right now, to sympathize with them, and to ensure that even when we resolve this matter, we resolve it in a way that suggests that those who are grieving have been given the right to grieve their departed member of the family and also have him buried in dignity. Speaking about what is happening now, the issue of our colleague, Mr. Chabinga, I have noticed that our colleagues rather on the side of the UPND are trying to underplay this. Okay, the first time that audio, after it was authenticated, was leaked and verified by people that put it in the platform, the UPND immediately rushed to the defense that was an AI production. People have pointed out to them that AI does not speak in local languages. It doesn't converse in vernacular languages. And even when they've been told that, they still remained firm on their defense that this was not done by Chabinga and others who are implicated in those stories. In fact, Chabinga himself has even threatened people, including my colleague on the left, with legal action and sometimes even with physical action because of pointing out to what he did, on the occasion of speaking to other people on what his mission was when he went to South Africa. But what is cardinal about all this is what the Vice President today said on the floor of the House. At least the Vice President made an admission that what was happening in there was that Chabinga was making suggestions of what he wanted to go and do when he went to South Africa. Implicitly, that suggests to everybody now that the story that this is an AI story does not hold any water. It is now very clear that indeed Mr. Chabinga and the people that he was speaking with about this issue was something that really took place. The question that we must ask ourselves as Zambians is, what are the implications of what Mr. Chabinga was doing? Okay, and I'm grateful myself that the Vice President today was able to authenticate that this story actually took place. Other people have already said it many, many times and at different forums, that this is not something you can dismiss as AI. It is a real story. We now are faced with a situation where we have to address ourselves to what do we need to do now that it's been laid bare that somebody who ranks very highly on the political platform of this country was making those inflammatory remarks against people and suggesting a declaration of intent to go and commit a serious crime in a country in which the disputes regarding whether we should repatriate the remains of a president or not is being considered. Why should we not undermine this? Like I said earlier, this is not an issue we should undermine. Why? Because everybody now in this country knows that Chabinga is the president of a patriotic front who is recognized by the UPND government. If you ask anybody in the UPND government who the president of the Patriotic Front currently is, they will tell you it's Mr. Chabinga, even when the matters in court are showing clearly that he shouldn't be the president. Secondly, Mr. Chabinga is the recognized leader of opposition by the UPND government in Parliament. Parliament is the third of the three wings of government where we exercise our sovereignty. So he is actually a recognized leader of opposition according to the UPND, not according to ourselves. Because for us, we know how the opposition is supposed to be elected in Parliament. And we've said that for so many times. We've told the nation that the keeping of Chabinga in that position is a clear abrogation of the Constitution. But facts as they stand now, even in South Africa, everybody now knows that the person who was declaring an intention to go and commit a crime in South Africa, and a crime as highly placed as bribing a judge in South Africa, is no other than a president of an opposition political party in Zambia and a leader of opposition who's recognized, by the government in Zambia. This is a very serious indictment on the Zambian government. And that's why I agree with Honorable Kafwaya when he says that somebody who wants us to extricate the presidency from these allegations is pointing the finger at the wrong people. We are just people that heard that conversation. We are not the ones who are accusing the president. In that conversation, the president was referred to repeatedly as boss. It was suggested in that conversation that the president made phone calls to Mr. Chabinga, and they had a discussion, and this mission was agreed. So anybody who would like to accuse anybody of telling lies about Chabinga must point to what was happening in the clip. But on my part, as a legislator and as a leader in the political platform of the nation, I think we need to do an introspection as a country. And the ones who must lead us in that introspection are the UPND government themselves. Because now, their agent who is appointed by them has shown clearly a true character of who he is. That he can go and, to another country and suggest means of trying to bring, the body of the late president, including means of which are actually illegal and criminal. So who is supposed to do this in carrying out this introspection? It is the UPND government. In my assessment, what the UPND government must do, apart from just distancing themselves from the Chabinga fiasco, if at all they can extricate themselves from it, I think they need to make a statement. Okay, and that statement, in my assessment, must even include possibly going to apologize to the South African government. That yes, the person that was making those suggestions, the person who was declaring an intention to go and commit a crime in South Africa, is a recognized political leader in this country, and possibly apologize in order for us to maintain our diplomatic relationship with South Africa. You can talk about judicial corruption in your own country, but when you think that you can have the audacity to export an intention to go and commit judicial corruption in another country, it creates a completely different dimension of problems. So we should not underplay what is contained in that clip. We should not underplay the message that was being portrayed in that clip. We should not underplay the fact that this has a potential to actually damage our relationship with South Africans. And if we are a serious government that we profess ourselves to be, a time has come for us to now reflect on what Mr. Chabinga has done, and not only for what he has done, but even the continued position that he holds as a so-called leader of opposition in Parliament. Because this is a dent not only to the UPND government, it's a dent on Parliament. Where have you heard a leader of opposition in a phone call suggesting to somebody that is going to do everything, including bribery, to achieve what they would like to achieve. And we can sit back like it's an everyday story. This is not an everyday story. We must deal with this matter, and it must be dealt with decisively. The other issue I wanted to deal with, members, is basically the issue briefly, of the selective application of the law in the country. Firstly, it has been spoken here about the consent order. Yes, the Patriotic Front has had problems of leadership for a long time. And I have, on many occasions, at different platforms, suggested to the nation that the UPND is not immune from causing the disruptions that the Patriotic Front has been going through the last 2 years. We have tried to access justice in this country as a way of resolving our problems. And at every opportunity that we've gone to court, we've come back from court shortchanged. Matters that should have been resolved through a judicial process have not been resolved. They've been thrown out on technicalities. We are reasonable human beings. We are adults, and we are experienced political leaders in the country. We decided we were going to engage with our colleagues, and we engaged. And Mao Sampa, to the viewership of the whole nation, apologized to the Patriotic Front, went to our president, and fortunately for him, before the president passed on, he went and apologized to the president, and they had a truce between them. And the party resolved we were going to return leadership to where it belongs. And one of the things we needed to do was prepare a consent order after agreeing that that's how we resolve the matter. Now, I'm a lawyer of more than 30 years standing. When people that are appearing before a court of law decide to resolve their matter using a consent order, the court's hands are tied. There is just nothing the court is going to do apart from append a signature to that consent order to resolve the matter. In fact, we make it easier for the court to resolve that matter because then we don't prolong the dispute that is before the court. And this is exactly what our lawyers have done, and the lawyers for Honorable Mao Sampa. They have sat in chambers, they have spoken to each other, they have agreed content of the consent order, they have appended their signatures to the consent order, and they filed it in court. The only thing that is required now is for the court to append the signature to the consent order. I don't know what difficulty this has presented to the judicature, but I have the hope and expectation that if the court believes in justice, and I believe it does, this consent order must be signed because it has finally resolved the issues of leadership in the Patriotic Front. They should now leave it to us as the Patriotic Front to go to the proper convention and convey leadership that is required as we prepare ourselves for 2026 elections. It is not up to the UPND that PF must continue to exist. It's up to the citizens of the Republic of Zambia who would choose either to be members of the UPND and members of the Patriotic Front. A chance is supposed to be given to the Zambians to exercise their freedom if they would like to continue with the political party called the Patriotic Front. But we know that UPND intends to proceed with ruthless impunity to make sure that the Patriotic Front does not come back into existence. But here is the law that they themselves were using. We have recourse to the law to try and recreate leadership in the Patriotic Front. We need to be assisted. And I would like to call upon the stakeholders in the nation, not only political players. I would like to call upon civil society organizations. I would like to call upon the church. I would like to call upon diplomatic corps that are recognized in this country, and even other international organizations that have something to do with the governance and the rule of law. Here is a chance to clean up the problems that this country has been facing for the longest time. Allow us to access the justice system and resolve this matter as we have resolved it through a consent order. If you don't do it, you basically create a systematic breakdown where a political party that is in power can cause another political party to go into extinction by using malice. The other issue I wanted to deal with on the rule of law is basically, there's a story, the press has put the legal committee of the Patriotic Front under pressure to make a statement on the conviction or the confirmation of the conviction of Honorable Kambwili in Kasama, as well as the conviction and sentence of the two ladies who are alleged or who admitted to have been spiting the president regarding the death of the 6th Republican president. And the press question came in the form that there seems to be selective application of justice in this country. That Mr. Kambwili was convicted on the same offenses that somebody in Northwestern Province was threatening the 6th Republican president that he was going to circumcise him and was going to commit crimes against him. And that person is still walking the streets. That the SG for the UPND, classified or called the Archbishop of Lusaka as Lucifer, and is still walking the streets. And Honorable Kambwili is serving a sentence. And those two young ladies in Chipata, I think in Chipata, who actually admitted to have committed an offense, who should have been entitled to leniency, were sentenced to 4 months imprisonment. Now, this is an issue that we've been talking about for the longest time. We've actually been saying selective application of justice does not help in the long run. It looks very simple because Honorable Kambwili is part of the Patriotic Front, yes. Those two young ladies may not even be members of Patriotic Front, but possibly they don't like the UPND. And you think that they should face the consequences of the merit of their actions. And in the same vein, those who patronize the UPND can commit all manner of offenses and be defended. In fact, people are thinking that even Honorable Chabinga is being defended by the UPND as he continues to commit crimes. My call to those who administer justice in this country, the police, the DPP, the Attorney General, and even the courts themselves, is to remind them that justice is blind. When people begin to see that justice is being selectively applied, people begin to think they should lose respect for a justice system in the country. A justice system that is selectively applied loses its legitimacy in the shortest course. And this is what we are now reaching as a nation. If you have seen, people are now becoming defiant against the law enforcement agencies. People are becoming defiant against the courts, against the police, sorry. By extension, they are going to become defiant against the courts. What are we going to have at the end of the day? Unbridled injustice, unbridled chaos in the country. So there is a call that is being made by not only the press, but stakeholders in this country, that those who have the responsibility of administering justice must be reminded that justice has no eyes. It does not see. It is blind. And you must apply it regardless of who is involved. Yes, others are very excited that Kambwili is serving a jail term. But in the same country, others are very angry that we've got people like the SG for the UPND who committed a serious crime. That young youth in Northwestern Province who threatened Dr. Lungu before he passed on are walking the streets. Chibokolo, a guy in the Copper Belt who insults every day, is walking the streets. And you think you're going to have justice in a country? This is it's a clear warning to those who are administering justice that something is wrong. You must do something to correct that position. Coming to the issue of Bill 7. So much has been said about Bill 7. Bill 7 has now divided this country. There are those of us who have called out the government on Bill 10. And we're not the only ones as politicians. There are even NGOs who have called out the government. Even those who had supported the government before have realized how evil or devilish Bill 10 is. Bill 10 does not respond to the, Bill 7, sorry, does not respond to the aspirations of the people. Forgive me. Bill 10 still remains embedded in my head for the past 5-6 years. But Bill 7 does not respond to the aspirations of the Zambian people. And we have used reasons before. We have said that this is the only constitutional amendment that is being forced under the throats of the Zambian people. There is no semblance of consultation or stakeholder consultation that was undertaken by the UPND before they brought Bill 7 to Parliament. And when we tried to raise it in Parliament, we were shouted down. People were even thinking we were jealous of the government of the UPND. But we saw the contents in Bill 7. We saw the procedure that is being espoused by Bill 7, and we have argued that that does not accord with constitutional practice everywhere in the world. You can't enact a constitutional amendment in the manner that is being suggested by Bill 7. We were actually supported, or we were found right, rather, by the Constitutional Court when it itself made a decision that this bill is supposed to be stopped because it doesn't comply with what is provided for in Act number 2 of 2016 and doesn't just comply with the constitutional procedure that's supposed to be followed when you have to amend the Constitution. Unfortunately, and for reasons that only UPND can explain, both the government, the president, members of cabinet, and everybody who speaks on behalf of the UPND government, including the Speaker of the National Assembly, are still suggesting to the nation that Bill 7 is alive. What do you intend to achieve if the people on whose behalf you are governing have told you you are wrong. What do you intend to achieve if the court that was created by a constitution itself and the only institution to which we have all ceded the power to make a decision of whether what you are doing is constitutional or not, have told you that what you are doing is unconstitutional? Like I said the other time, nobody in the UPND government is going to die if we start this process all over again afresh, and if we carry out a process that fully complies with constitutional demands in amending this constitution. We are not saying don't amend the constitution, but we are saying comply with the constitution when you want to amend it, because that's exactly what the Constitution Act of Amendment of number 2 of 2016 suggested we're supposed to be doing. To think that you can just push a constitutional amendment against the wishes of the Zambian people, I said earlier, is actually to commit constitutional coup d'etat on the Zambian people. Because the document you're going to come up with will not be reflective of what Zambians expect to be in the constitution. A government that enjoys, or that claims to enjoy the accolades of the people, a government that claims to enjoy the approval of the people, we will listen to its people and will act on the basis or in accordance with what its people have said. This government has taken a very stubborn, stance, especially in the area of the rule of law and in the area of constitutionalism. I can even demonstrate with what is happening with the Lands and Deeds Registry Act. Like Honorable Kafaya has said, they've just woken up from slumber and decided they are going to undertake a piecemeal amendment to the Lands and Deeds Registry Act. For everybody who knows, the Lands and Deeds Registry Act provides for a regime of how we are supposed to hold land in the country, of how we're supposed to possess certificates of title or title deeds to land in the country, and how that statute itself says a certificate of title is absolute evidence of ownership of land. And how that very statute says it is only the High Court that is conferred with power or jurisdictional power to decide whether a certificate of title can be cancelled or not. And that act provides for instances when the High Court can exercise that power. Now, this is a historical position. And Zambians may not know that that provision in the law, this year, 2015, clocks 810 years from the time it was first enacted in the UK. Anybody who has studied land law will tell you that in 1214, the year 1214 to 1215, England was about to explode into a civil war that was going to have engulfed the whole Europe. And it was because of land. And it was because of how to hold titled land. And that civil strife took place for between 2014 and 1214 and 1215. And in June of 1215, the King of England capitulated under weight of the people who were not citizens. It was a serfdom at that time. They were called subjects. The subjects revolted against the king. And one of the reasons why they revolted was they were not happy with the land tenure system in England at that time. And a compromise was struck in what lawyers will tell you is called the Magna Carta, which was signed in 1215. And that Magna Carta guaranteed the ownership of land by people who were subjects of the king that time, to the exclusion of the king. Because now it was felt that the king was usurping the powers to own land. And the people were now demanding we must be allowed to own land to the exclusion of the king. And that's why they came up with what is called a fee simple, land tenure system in the UK, where you own land yourself as a family, absolutely. This is a clause that has survived 810 years up to now. And in every country which is part of the Commonwealth, this is the source of why we have title deeds to land in this country and elsewhere in the Commonwealth. And this is why it is now demanded of government that you cannot cancel a title deed for any citizen in the country unless you take the matter up before the courts of law. And our system here has a provision in the Lands and Deeds Registry Act itself which mandates only the High Court to have power to cancel the certificates of title. The reason is very simple. Certificates of title are issued by the registrar of lands and deeds. And before a certificate of title can be issued to a citizen, you have to go through a rigorous process of proving to the registrar that you are entitled to that land, either by applying to the Commissioner of Lands or when I buy a property from Mr. Kafwaya. We won't just exchange title deeds at home. There's a process that is provided for in the Lands and Deeds Registry Act and other laws that allows for me to transfer or for Kafwaya to transfer title to myself. And the registrar sits at the center of ensuring that everything that the law is provided for is complied with before a title is transferred to somebody else. And this is the reason why in the Lands and Deeds Registry Act in section 33 and 34, the title, once it is transferred to Mr. Kafwaya, he becomes the absolute owner of that land, subject only to what is contained in the memorials in the certificate of title. And if there's anybody who wants to question Mr. Kafwaya's right to own that land, you must go to the High Court and get a determination from the court whether Mr. Kafwaya correctly obtained that land or not. But to wake up today, as government, without consulting people, and suggest to the people that we are going to give the registrar powers to cancel your certificate of title, it raises the very questions that I was speaking about here. That maybe there's something more than meets the eye that has caused this government to take such a draconian measure against its own citizen. And you see, what is worrying me about the UPND is this. The UPND had no manifesto. The UPND never came to you, Zambians, and told you, if you vote for us, we are going to do this and this and this and that. They had nothing. The UPND had a 10-point plan, which is very different from a manifesto. And the 10-point plan was just created as a response to the Patriotic Front manifesto. Because the PF was setting itself very, very well. They also needed to compete. And they had no time to roll out the manifesto. They came up with a 10-point plan. If you go to the 10-point plan, you will not find any clause in there saying one day they woke up and say the registrar can cancel your certificate of title. What the UPND is doing today and what they said they're going to do when they're opposition are completely different positions. And I don't know how we are going to assess them at the end of the day, whether they have complied with what the promises Zambian people, of course, most of the promises that given were castles in the air and nothing has happened. But this is very critical. You can't allow a government, at momentary whims and caprices to just wake up and say, we are going to amend the law. The registrar can grab your certificate of title. If you want, you can appeal to the minister. You even politicize the process of land tenure in the country. From the time of the watershed speech that Kaunda read in 1975, politicians have never been allowed to participate in the land tenure system. That's why in this country, the land is vested in the president who owns it for and on behalf of the people of Zambia. And when it comes to land administration, the president designates a commissioner of lands as is designated to manage the Lands and Deeds Registry, and is the one who's responsible for issuing certificates of title. The registrar is, for lack of a better term, is a very clerical office. The only thing you need to establish is that everything was followed, this title must be transferred, or this person has applied properly, give me a certificate of title. And today you want to wake up and tell the nation that this registrar is going to be given power to cancel a certificate of title. UPND, think again. You are managing people. You see, and among us people that hold land, there are rich people who can afford anything that you would like to introduce, and poor people who can't afford all these things that you want to introduce. The poor people are going to be the ones who are going to suffer the brunt in the event that you implement this position. When I was thinking that maybe the UPND is right, I told myself, okay, be a lawyer, research, find out, how do they do it in other countries? To my shock, I established that we will be the only country in the whole world that will have a system where a certificate of title can be cancelled by a registrar of lands. Because I carried out a survey, and I can share some of the findings that I've got with you in the survey that I've carried out. I looked at 6 different countries. I looked at Kenya, I looked at Botswana, I looked at Zimbabwe, I looked at South Africa, I looked at Malaysia, I looked at India. In all these countries, including New Zealand, the registrar does not have any powers to cancel certificates of title. If anybody has a grievance regarding the authenticity of ownership of a certificate of title, you are supposed to go to the High Court for that determination. And there's a reason why, like I said earlier, this is an 810-year-old rule, but also it has been refined, it has been worked on, it has been improved to make sure that land titles are held by people that genuinely are entitled to them. But the other reason is that, you see, the High Court, in determining whether Mr. Kafaya's certificate of title is supposed to be cancelled, will also address itself to what do we do with the house Mr. Kafaya built on the title. Because the certificate of title is just a piece of paper, but there's a house there. The High Court has that mandate to ensure that that is also addressed at the same time. And this is the reason why we have difficulties with this proposed amendment to the law, and we would like to call upon Zambians to hold the UPND to account. This is not a piece of legislation that you must pass in this country, especially if you promise Zambian people good governance. This is a departure from good governance. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Alright, that's all for you today, lovely viewers. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video you just watched in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers. Once again, I go by the name of Mutati Mpundu. I love you, peace, I gotta go.